Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here for a number of reasons. And if we have to, I'll pass the mic. This is actually my birthday. So I am doing what I love on my birthday. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, and because of that, I think this is really important. My background is as a lawyer, but I'm also in education, and I've been in the space over 10 years now. I know all these wonderful people from a variety of walks that we've taken, and they have a huge amount of knowledge. Now, we all know in this space that the technology is evolving, and that impacts finance, and it also impacts quality of life. So I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves because I do not want to miss anything that they have going on that I don't know about. So we're going to start with Mariana first, and then we're going to pass it on down.
So hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for staying with us till the end. Happy birthday again. My name is Mariana Roche. I'm originally from Colombia, but I've been living in the European Union for like over 10 years. My background is in law. I started in human rights and international law and working mostly with the development sector until trying to figure out how technology could push forward social impact and sustainability and improve the work that we were doing in the development sector in a faster manner. I landed on blockchain at the time, and that was back in 2017 and 2018. I started to work with a Layer 1, doing quite a lot of work on infrastructure projects, so mostly looking at blockchain as technology and not like crypto as a financial instrument. And since then, I've been doing quite a lot of things with the industry, mostly always serving as a bridge between regulators and the industry and promoting discussion across the industry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the last session. My name is Katsuya Terai. I'm the Deputy Director of Crypto Assets, Blockchain and Innovation Office of Japanese Financial Services Agency. My primary role and responsibility include the supervision of the crypto exchanges, stablecoin issuers, and other digital asset-related projects. Then I also work on the policy issues, like, for example, we are currently discussing the reform of our crypto asset regulatory regime, and so we are aiming for the actual implementation of a new regime mid-2027, and then. At this moment, we are currently learning a lot from other jurisdictions. This is one of the reasons I am joining here because I've been learning a lot from the Maker's implementation or UK's new regime. So I'm so happy to join this panel. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Howell. I'm the overseas representative from the government of Bermuda to the United States. I'm stationed in Washington, D.C. I'm the director of the office there. I'm very happy to be here on this panel today. I'm very grateful to be here and to share what Bermuda has been doing within this space. We've been in this space early on, an early adopter with our legislation, the Digital Asset and Business Act, initiated back in 2017. And from that standpoint, we have progressively gone forward very aggressively to make sure that the industry is well regulated and well protected. And that has led to very much longstanding success that Bermuda has seen as an innovator and as a leader within the industry itself. From that point, my background is on the political side and on the economic side. The main focus of my office is economic development in the United States to promote Bermuda's agenda there, to draw business to Bermuda for those who are seeking clarity in operating within the digital asset space. We have many companies that have decided to license their companies and entities inside of Bermuda because of our regulatory clarity and everything that it offers within it. The scope of which is very much updated regularly. We work with industry leaders in order to safeguard the industry, to protect the reputation of Bermuda, and to make sure that the entities themselves and the consumers are protected as well. And so without further ado, thank you very much for having me here on this panel, and thank you.
So as you can see, we kind of represent a little bit of the entire globe. And the leaders that are actually here, especially those from Bermuda and Japan, can talk about what's going on in their space, but also looking at the trends, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the panel. So let's picture our community like a Venn diagram. We have the institutions, and then we have DeFi, and then we have this blend in between. And so with that, there's a lot of intersections that are happening. So I'm going to throw it out to the panel to talk about what intersections do you see that are happening because of the regulatory passing of MiCA and the other regulations around the world. There's more clarity now, but there's also more restrictions, possibly. So what do you see the trends going on?
I mean, it's like hard to think on that, like how you put it, like, because I don't think that is a Venn diagram where you have like institutions and traditional finance and then DeFi. I will say like DeFi is just like a teeny tiny point inside of the whole like crypto asset universe, right? And when we look like also like as a crypto as a asset category, well, the actual impact that we have is really small in comparison with the rest. So what I will say that like the trend is like more looking like broadly at the blockchain ecosystem and the digital asset ecosystem and the traditional financial sector is actually on the construction of that bridge between those two worlds. And I think that this is something that and we were discussing this a lot like this week, has been done also because of regulation, right? So the actual impact, although regulation has been somehow limiting the access to the space for some of the players, it has also the impact has been like a consolidation of the players that were already there, and it's facilitating adoption at the institutional level. So after MiCA, at least in Europe, and you are like, please jump in on your your regimes. But what we have seen in Europe is a lot of like, after MiCA, a lot of banks and institutional players and traditional players have started to explore how to integrate digital assets more broadly, right? It's not that they were not doing it. I think that like everyone was preparing for this, but now we have like seen a level of adoption that is much higher, although we have a particular market right now due to the global context we are experiencing, especially for the things that are happening, the tendencies in North America. But we are also like seeing how the exchanges, the crypto exchanges in the CASP are also starting to look at how to integrate more traditional financial assets. Like Bybit just like last year applied for a MiFID license in Vienna, which was not so far away from the moment that they apply or like they have the MiCA license granted. And this is like also like a sentiment or a feeling that we can see on how we bridge these two different worlds. So retail can access the products, whether it's like digital assets wrapped in a financial instrument via the traditional broker and banks, or investors that were particularly interested in the crypto space, how they can also start accessing securities like by using the same platforms that we were using to access crypto. So I think that that's the most interesting development that we will have. Although I can talk about like all the things that like you probably already heard like 100 times here, like stable coins and real world asset tokenization. But for me, this bridge between these two worlds is where the actual value for adoption lays right now.
And in Japan and Bermuda?
Yeah, okay, so I think my comments as a regulator, maybe a little bit more, how to say, supervisory perspective than, I think as a regulator, as a Japanese position is like especially DeFi activities, we don't have any specific position as to whether or which law should be applied to DeFi activities, including intermediary side. Because for example, we published last December we published the reporting and reflect our discussion last year, and in that case, therefore our position is that we are still monitoring what's going to be happening in other jurisdictions. For example, in the EU, MiCA does not apply to blockchain services. And that is fully decentralized without intermediary. But even after the implementation of MiCA, regulators and the leaders everyone, is still discussing what, fully decentralized actually means. This is really, really, has, difficult issues, and that we need to still working on. And okay, then this is our DeFi part. Then institutional part, as I mentioned earlier, we are, currently, discussing the reform of the crypto asset regulatory regime. We expect that more updated regime will be more favorable investment, institutional investment in crypto assets and other digital assets. And also, at this moment, we don't see, too many, financial players coming into digital asset investment, but we do actually, expect, more and more players, and also we're gonna provide more favorable environment in terms of tax treatment. Yeah, so that's why we are still discussing it. Yeah.
As a non-regulator, I can't follow in your comments on that, but I will say for Bermuda's side, our regulating body, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, is always actively engaged in the areas in which compliance will be fully met with any entity within the ecosystem of Bermuda is adhering to it. And I do know that there is a huge push from not just only Bermuda, but in outside countries to kind of see traditional finance being encapsulated within the digital asset space itself. There are a lot of outliers, a lot of people that are still who are still not committed to cryptocurrencies, digital assets, and they view traditional finance in the lens that it is the system that we know it's been utilized the most and the most comfortable with. So trying to break that comfort zone and to see a way in which they can blend together seamlessly is the direction that needs to be taken forward.
So the next question I have is more from the government perspective, from what you've seen from around the world. Again, governments are approaching this with different ways. They're looking at it to give leeway. They're sometimes looking at for strict regulation. And from what are the trends for where you see the governments possibly regulating? Do you see them being looser in certain areas? Do you see them kind of restricting? There's a lot of talk about privacy, a lot of talk about consumer protection. Where do you see this going? Because we have a lot more communities that are stepping into this now.
I'll jump in from the Bermuda side. Yeah, there are a lot of areas in which there is primary focus. The biggest one that I've seen so far, always comes up in conversation, is how to protect the consumer. That is the driving factor. In Bermuda specifically, I would note that is one of the biggest things we look at. People want to feel comfortable. They want to operate in a jurisdiction in which there is safety. They feel that their needs are being taken into consideration as development and legislation is passed. And so it is up to us to ensure that the consumers are protected in that guard, and we have certain guardrails in place. The BMA does a fantastic job, our legislative teams do a fantastic job, the government itself, and even private industry. We work together as a cohesive unit in order to strengthen the progressive way forward. And we work with the leaders in that capacity, in that space. So consumer protection is number one to that. Additionally, we want to make sure that the companies that decide to call Bermuda their home, they are working with a regulator that is understanding of their needs. They are profit driven, and companies need to ensure that there is a base there for operations, and they have clientele, and aren't going to be restrictions on how they operate in terms that will lead to liquidity issues and things of that nature. So working in that scope with the BMA and other entities on the island itself, to where we have these strong regulations and these interplays connected, that allows this seamless flow of protection for the consumers, but also protection for the companies as well. And to this point, this is one of the reasons why getting a license in Bermuda can be it's not an arduous process, but it's a very deep dive and thorough process, because our regulator wants to make sure that those who do set up on the country are able to do so without any issue. And they're here for the long term, not the short term. Otherwise, you're going to have bad actors that enter the industry, and we need to avoid that at all costs.
Okay, so from the Japanese side, in terms of our country's regulatory landscape, then I think with respect to when we decided to regulate crypto assets or exchanges, I think Japan was the very first mover. We started to regulate the crypto assets exchanges since 2017, which was a long time before implementation maker. So we have lots of the experience and supervisory experiences. But the initial assumption was kind of tricky, and our assumption was like the crypto assets were used mainly as a payment method. But reality is not different. I mean, there are people ended up using crypto assets as an investment target, which is part of the investment portfolio. And this is a good driver for us to decide update our crypto asset regime, and under the new regime, maybe we're gonna introduce a new regime which is more similar to MiFID type regulatory framework, and of course we're gonna try to prioritize consumer protection and also in market integrity, like the insider trading regulation. Yeah, this is our current movement, and also in addition to that, we are put emphasis on the cybersecurity issue. Since 2017, we have been experienced lots of cybersecurity incidents. Some of them affected Japanese exchanges. Then a large amount of customer assets, crypto assets, were stolen by bad actors, and eventually, exchanges failed due to these incidents. This is, our nightmare in the past. That's why, we need to, try to encourage, exchanges, not only as individual company level, but also the industry level, to strengthen their, cybersecurity awareness.
I will agree with everything that you said, but I think that if we all agree all the time on a panel, it gets really boring. So I want to play devil's advocate here and put a little bit of spice there. And because I'm a consultant and not part of the government, I have more freedom of speech, so to speak. But I have seen two tendencies. One tendency is to just regulate the minimum, which is what some of regulators have done. Australia, for example, looking just at the AML and KYC rules that they can interfere, following FATA rules somehow, but not actually creating a whole regulatory regime as we did in Europe. And then other regulators that are trying to understand absolutely everything and control everything. So we have these both extremes, right? I will say that both extremes, I don't know how I feel about this side, but what I can say is that I do feel that sometimes when we speak about consumer protection and the purpose of the regulation focus on consumer protection, we are somehow in a fake feeling of security. Because when we talk about AML, I do not think that enhancing strict AML rules, especially in the crypto space, will make any difference or make the environment more safety, because any bad player, as you call them, they are not going to KYC. They're not going to KYC regardless of the regulation, right? And I would like to see the impact of regulations like AML or travel, the TFR, the transfer fund regulation, actually what is the impact in the prevention of not only anti-money laundering, but the crimes that are actually creating that money that there is laundering in the system, right? That's what I would like to see, the impact, because the sacrifice otherwise is privacy. Mm-hmm. And we have a technology right now that everything you put there is going to be there forever. So I do not know how safe I feel if you look at what is happening in France with all the kidnaps and all the scams, and the fact that if at some point any information is leaked that can link that wallet to me, then everyone knows how much money I have in that wallet. So that's even more risky. So if we are talking about consumer protection, where is my privacy rights, right? And this is I think that one of the things that we left in the back because we are so focused on the anti-money laundering regulation and preventing these bad players for laundering the money. Well, they are not going to use any of these channels that we have right now, where we can actually track back, especially with all the toolings that we have in the industry, to track back those wallets. But we are actually putting also in danger the people that is playing by the rules, or making even more difficult for those that want to play by the rules, because then the consumers can still do arbitrage. And if I do not want to follow these rules, well, I just like change to another regulatory regime, or even like the companies. Like there was a migration of companies that went to Dubai and the Middle East after we made the regimes more strict. So I think the logic here is not just like try to regulate absolutely everything, considering like this like fake feeling of security, but actually like go back to why are we regulating? Like what is actually going to be the impact of regulation? I'm actually enhancing the industry and bringing more innovation while also protecting people, or I'm just like regulating because like I do not understand how the technology works and I really want to control the evolution of the technology, right? And I think that this is somewhere the direction that we are trying to go right now. I am really happy to see that there is more discussions and more people talking about privacy, because I think that this is a conversation that at some point got lost, especially if we look at the quality and the characteristics of the technology itself that is behind the digital assets, right? Because we are trying to just like put old school norms and regulation in a technology that de facto can enhance toolings that will make the technology itself more secure. So I think that we need to find a way in which we educate regulators to understand what we can do with the technology and how regulation actually makes sense.
So I really like this little transition. Normally as a moderator, I don't make comments, but I'm going to right now. So I lead a number of organizations, and one of the organizations I lead is the Digital Asset Regulatory Authority. And so what I think that also might need to be happen within our community is more research into what, like you had said, how do we apply zero-knowledge proof and a lot of the other tech that's being created into our traditional world to see if we can help protect the consumers and also help the traditional banks as well as those that are navigating with digital assets. But that's a whole nother conversation. That wasn't one of the questions on our list. So I'm just planting that out as a seed because I think that there's research that needs to be done on how do we kind of bring some of the tech that's happening, developing into our other community.
Sorry, I don't think that that's a matter of research. I think that actually that's a matter of education. You were talking about cyber. Cyber is one of the most important things, of course,
Yeah.
but most of the hacks that we are seeing is not a hack to the technology, it's a human hack.
Yes.
It's because the people also
Yes.
they don't understand where the risks are and how it works. And I think that there was an example this morning where they were saying like, yeah, like if I want my mom to buy Bitcoin, I won't send it to an exchange. I will send it probably to like BlackRock because it's the most secure thing for her. So it's really a matter of like educating not only the public, but also the regulator. If the regulator doesn't understand that you can track every transaction with the blockchain and that the transactions are there and that you can actually follow the path, well, they will like keep thinking that like crypto equals money laundering and like the black market and all of these things without actually understanding how to use the technology to prevent those things or like track them down, right?
If I can jump in, Mariana,
Yeah.
to your point, I do agree with that, and it's one of the strong points of having a very dedicated and strong team in the regulator, as a supervisory role. You need to have those individuals who have that knowledge, those who have the experience. Bermuda, the BMA, the regulators who are there, they've been there for years. They understand the nuances, they understand what's to be expected, and therefore this allows progressive actions to be taken without shutting out markets, without shutting out entities because there's a lack of knowledge or fear. So I think that's important for any jurisdiction that wants to kind of follow in that similar capacity. You need to have strong regulators and enforcers who have that knowledge as well. That way, that it's no fear mongering.
I would agree. We're going to transition to our next question. So because entities, startups, businesses have the ability to choose different locations for the banking, for the regulations, what's attracting businesses to your jurisdictions now?
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, I guess. For Bermuda, again, it's the strong regulators, it's the clarity with the DABA, it's again, we've created an ecosystem in which businesses can actually thrive that are in that space, and that's what's most attractive. When you look at other jurisdictions, and it is not an offense to any other jurisdiction that is leading the landscape, I should say, Bermuda's just been an innovator in that. It's been an innovator since 2016, when the formation of the idea of Digital Asset Business Act was thought about, implemented back in 2017, and then the other regulatory framework that has been built around that, as well as the updates. There have been many different organizations and boards that the government has set out, which there's a DAO working group, there is an identity working group, there are just this continual drive to have a community build that actually looks to secure the industry going forward. And in that direction, in that narrative, this has become very attractive for large entities who need that clarity. There's no sense in investing in anything that you're going to put a lot of money into, and then a year down the line, rules change or regulation landscape is not what you anticipate, and then you're fighting for your life or your funds just to try to stay solvent. And so Bermuda provides that opportunity for a company to have that secure, regulatory clarity and the security to operate. And that's the most attractive that I've seen so far with Bermuda's playing in this space.
Yeah,
It's tricky.
it's tricky, I know.
I think there are not regulatory standpoint. I think Japan's retail base is quite significant this moment still. For example, the domestic exchanges have 30 million accounts already in total. It is 1 out of 10 compared to entire population. And also the total amount of total value of crypto assets are held in custody of these exchanges exceeded 30 billion euro around. I think we already have this very strong retail customer base, and also we're gonna expect the tax treatment, change of tax treatment. So we're gonna lower and the tax treatment of crypto asset capital gains. What I mean by that is at this moment, the tax rate is 55% at most or at maximum, but we're gonna lower this number to 20%. This is really favorable environment for retail investment. Also maybe in 2027 we have a new regulatory regime which have more clarity, and also our agency is very nice to talk to the businesses and try to understand what the business is actually doing. And so this is a good point from the business standpoint. Yeah.
I will agree with both of you. One is if you have clarity, it's just easy to go there because you have certain certainty, but the attitude of the regulator is really important, right? A good regulator is the one that responds fast to you as well and push forward the processes, which is one of the reasons why I believe in Europe at least, everyone is really towards Austria right now. We have seen this sea of exchanges going there because also the attitude on the regulator. I will say also that besides regulation, there is other thing that drives movement between or brings adoption, and is what is actually happening with the global context. A year ago, we thought that with the new administration in the US, there was going to be a lot of movement in that direction because the attitude towards crypto assets was going to be different. But due to the massive lack of coherence in the actions that the US is taking and how they're treating allies, we have also seen how many of those companies are coming to Europe because it's perceived as a more stable. And if I can just finish with something, I think that something that has been really positive is that now finally we have trying in Europe to have more European-based company, technology-based for Europeans, so we break this dependency from the Americas. And I actually think, well, the Americas, the US, the Americas is way too big. But I think actually this is a really positive thing. I'm really excited to see how all of these new companies are starting to just be more strong. There's more support for those companies at the level of the institutions. And I really hope to see more and more European tech serving Europeans.
So our last question, what would be a takeaway for everyone in the audience to think about, whether it's in who you represent or a future trend that we need to be thinking about within our banking and institutional as well as digital asset community?
I think that since I'm joining this event, then yeah, I have a lot of insights. And also, one thing I was surprised at is they are talking, many people are talking about privacy, and when it comes to the entry of institutional players into the digital asset space, but I think our agency, we have not been discussing so much regarding this topic. So I think this is very good perspective. I got it. So thank you.
See, they have a good regulator. they listen to the industry.
Anthony? And one last takeaway for the audience?
Yeah, sure, no problem. My last takeaway is just seeing, the transformation of the industry itself. There is a drive for those who really want to see themselves expand and really work with different industry leaders and different governments in order to not only advance their own personal stakes and their own companies' reputations and what have you, but also to do what's going to be a good fit for a lot of the people who are investing into the technology in that landscape. And from the Bermuda lens itself, being it's a very small island and not many different economic drivers. We really focus on international business. So just being able to transpose certain areas into seeing what best fits our narrative, and this wave of new technology development has kind of fit into that mold, and we've been able to kind of carve into that. It just really shows, again, that if you are looking very far into the future and you're looking at ways and how technology drivers develop, and you're innovative, you can really develop a lot of solutions which are really are paramount today and necessary.
All right, Mariana.
Just because we stay in the traditional financial and sector and the crypto, I think that one of the things that I'm really excited to see on that part is the level of adoption, because I always say crypto is a bubble and it will only grow as that bubble, right? And one way to actually increase that bubble in an easy way is to working with players that already have the trust of the retail and will help us to increase that adoption. And by working with banks and traditional financial players, that's actually a way to attract more users into the industry, which I hope it develops beyond the small touch point with the banking sector, and actually goes into a more or awakes curiosity on the people to explore more how this technology actually works and start to innovate and play with DeFi, not only for the traditional applications that we see, but actually like Ethics Hub, one of my favorite projects, using DeFi as an investment platform from lending in farmers in the global south that are historically discriminated from the traditional financial sector. So how we actually start to bring more people to use it and just increase the reach and have some impact at the end of the day.
Yeah, we've run out of time, but for me, a lot of what's going on in our community is a blend of philosophies, and we really appreciate your being here. There's going to be so much more that we can talk about, both in terms of applications as well as education for consumers, and we want to thank you for being here. Thank you.